come and speak to us in this panel discussion concerning the role of Japan-related programs, what role the Japan-related programs played in their lives and career. So it's a very career-oriented kind of presentation. First, we'll be speaking to Laura Borling, and who is presently coordinator for the Graduate School of International Admission at Miami University. And then we'll speak with Walter Grundon, who is Associate Professor, Department of History, Bowling State University. And next, Mr. Toshiyuki Hara, who is currently President of Ohio Metal Technologies. Aaron Pope, who is presently a Program Assistant in 4-H International Programs. And finally, last but not least, Robert Padilla II, who is currently Assistant Professor in the History Department of University of Toledo. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Laura Borling, how did the study of Japanese or Japan-related programs help you in your career? If you could perhaps give us a brief synopsis of what those programs were.
Okay. They were absolutely integral to the start of my career. I did my bachelor's in East Asian languages and cultures, focusing on Japan at Miami University. And then I was one of the first people to get the Master of Arts in East Asian Studies from here. And of course, I focused on Japan. And originally, I thought that I wanted to get my PhD in East Asian Studies, but it actually took me going to graduate school for me to really realize what graduate school is all about. And I realized that I wanted to kind of get in the field and get my hands dirty. And so thankfully, shortly after getting my master's here, I landed an interview back home in Westchester at a Japanese company called Ikeuchi USA. And after discovering that there was a recruiting agency that recruited specifically for local Japanese companies. And so I ended up moving back home, being with the parents, as a lot of people did, to save some money. And then I was able to just commute 10 minutes. But I got the job because I studied Japanese. Because up to that point, I had just been a server for 6 years working my way through college, and I had zero office experience. And so it was really just being able to use Japanese in my interview and being able to relate to them on a cultural level that got them to really take an interest in me. I started studying Japanese because the language sounded really interesting to me. And I can't explain why, but I've always been a language person, and the sounds of languages always fascinated me. So originally I thought that I wanted to maybe go into linguistic studies, but after getting in and taking some culture classes, I realized that the complexity of both Japanese culture in historical context and modern Japanese subcultures was really, really fascinating, because you have to bring in different parts of Japanese studies together in order to understand what's going on. So,
Did you do any study abroad, or did you go to Japan? You've been to Japan.
I actually had to do a study abroad program in order to finish up my bachelor's, because our bachelor's program is pretty new at Miami University, and my senior year, one of the two Japanese professors took her year research sabbatical, and she took her classes with her. So I was stuck with no real way of finishing my degree, and so then I studied abroad office and said, what can I do? I'm going to graduate. I'm a senior, so I need to get out of here and move on with my life. And they helped me discover the Temple University Japan campus's 11-week Asian Summer Studies program. So that fits perfectly. I could finish my bachelor's over the course of the summer, and then I could start my master's after that. So yeah, even though I had to do an open consortium agreement, it was definitely worth it. I would say that it's really consider the actual field that you're going in, the actual job itself that you might be doing, and the day-to-day tasks that you will be doing, because, you know, really when it comes down to it, that's what it's about. That's what you're being paid to do. And then the Japanese language and the cultural background, it enriches what you're able to offer, and it makes you more attractive.
Next, we talk from Professor Grundon. I'll let you introduce yourself and his educational background. So, okay.
I took my BA in Japanese here at The Ohio State University. Much longer ago now than I could admit. But I had a great program and great teachers, such as Professor Torrance, and was able to, my junior year, go to the International Christian University. I don't know if you still have the exchange program with them. And I was one of the earlier exchange students to ICU. And it was a very educational year abroad. Came back, and I'd always enjoyed Japanese history, Asian history in general, and I had not only excellent history professors here, but also at ICU, and that's really what hooked me into history. But I couldn't leave the language, of course, because to be a real historian, you have to have the language, and so came back and continued to study Japanese language, and also got my master's degree in history here at Ohio State University as well. So, and after that, I ran off to California for a few years, and took my PhD at the University of California in Santa Barbara. And shortly after that, just by luck or fate or whatever it happened to be, a job came up at Bowling Green State University, which is up in the northwest corner near where Rob teaches, just south of Toledo. And I was fortunate enough to get that job, and that's where I've been ever since. And it's been quite a road. And along the way, I should maybe mention, was able to do a postdoc at Tokyo Institute of Technology back in 2001, 2002, and that was an incredible year abroad.
The next participant is Mr. Toshi Hara. He received a BA in English Literature at Aoyama Gakuin University, one of the foremost universities in Japan, and then a degree in law from Keio University. He then came to the United States, and Mr. Hara, if you could pick it up from there.
Sure. Actually, the University of Keio, I finished all the courses, but I didn't finish my thesis.
Oh.
So, yeah, didn't graduate. But anyway, I went to all the courses.
But you have a background in law.
Yeah, I just try to make it short, but graduating from high school, I didn't know what to do. So this is how I decided to go to college. In what subject? My girlfriend wanted to go to this Alumni University, English Literature. But she couldn't pass, she didn't pass. I was alone there, so really didn't know what to do. So that's how my undergrad time was spent. Very lonely time, but that's how I started. And then, because I didn't study in college, undergrad. I did a lot of work, part-time job, 3 jobs, 2 jobs, bought motorcycles, and did some gambling and bought races and stuff like that. So actually I had to study, so I decided to come here to study. So I worked for about a year and a half at a sushi restaurant in Japan, in Tokyo, and then saved enough money to come here. I went to University of Georgia, linguistics department, and finished my master's in science, and then still didn't know what to do. So I applied for Ohio State East Asian Language Literature. And then I was accepted. I came here at Buckeye State. Football was really good, so I really was was excited to come here. Still didn't know what to do. So for 2 years, I guess sort of studied. I graduated. Then I had to do something. And I was thinking about going back to Japan to teach at college. That's how I was planning before. But I started working for Honda. Everybody knows Honda. I was teaching Japanese at Japanese language school in Columbus. So that's how I met Honda people. And then they told me that, oh, you're just killing your time. You better do something real. So I started working there 3 years, and then I went back to Japan and came back here about 6 months later, and then started working for a different company. But my educational background, 2006, 2008, I had my MBA from University of Liverpool, where soccer. Again. But anyway, that was a online. But it was probably the most that I had to study because of so much requirements and classes and books and everything. So I was competing ballroom dancing. I was running this company, and I was studying MBA. So yeah, it was very busy. Yes. So that's my education background. Yeah. There are a couple of things that I can give you as an advice. First, I had an opportunity to interview for a job. I was in they're coming to Virginia, so
Interviewer.
yeah. So in the last 3 months, probably 40 people. They're CFOs and some management positions that I interviewed. But they have things that they have done in the past in the resume and asking questions. Many of them don't have a sort of strong desire that they were in certain things. When you see that, when you talk to them about what they did, really wasn't able to express and how hard, how much they really like what they did. It's just they're there to earn money compared to someone who really likes what they do. This is something that they really enjoy. There's a huge difference when you be on this side of the table and then asking questions. How much value this person can bring to this company, to my company. The difference is that right now, I was there about 28, 30 years ago. 25 years ago, not 28, yeah, 25 years ago. And really didn't know what to do until like maybe 10 years ago. And I was still doing a lot of different things. But when we see young, very enthusiastic people come to see for an interview, the one thing that I like to see is how hard, how much you like what you're doing, and does everybody play poker? You know the word all in, right? I don't want just someone just here and there. You have to be all in what you're doing. So that's one piece of advice. Next one is, this is something that Steve Jobs, he talked about when he gave a speech at the Stanford several years ago, connecting dots. I ran into two people that I used to work or I used to live in, that they came for an interview. And the same thing for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do back years ago. But now, looking back, there's certain things that I did. For instance, linguistics, linguistic theory, or artificial intelligence. All those classes that I really didn't pay much attention, but I passed. I wish I did better. I wish I studied more, because those are things that a company that I probably own is doing a lot to produce component parts for automotive. Highlander, Pilot, Odyssey, Accord, Civic, BMW, Mercedes, F-150, Equinox, Venza, Corolla. These are the cars that we make parts for the drive shaft. And many robots. We have robots working, of course, that have to compete with China, Mexico. So those high tech that I didn't really pay attention, really, it's important to me. So those connecting dots, what you're doing is very important. You probably don't, don't understand, but that's something that I wish I knew more. To me, because I'm Japanese, so it's I guess it's hard to say that to study Japanese, but for you, just like she studied Japanese and landed a job and into this field. Again, the language or any subject, it doesn't matter, but I think it's great because you're not just learning the language, but you're learning people, culture, how we process information, gestures, and things like that. You probably learn Yinjo and Wabi Sabi, those things in the culture class. But those are something that only those who study and understand Japanese can appreciate. And when I see people who understand those, I feel so good. So, yeah, of course, it's a great value in studying Japanese.
Next is Erin Ho, and she was a Japanese major here at OSU, and studio art minor. And if you could take it.
Well, since I was 12, my no. Since I was 12, my family hosted exchange students from Japan, so I guess that's how I got into everything. We hosted year-longs and month-longs in the summer through 4-H international programs, which I'm currently a program assistant for now. But after graduating from New Hampshire State University, I did a 1-year internship through this company called Labo International Exchange Foundation, and they're based out of Tokyo, but they have like district offices all throughout Japan, in Tohoku and Osaka, Hiroshima, and Kyushu. So I spent 4 months in Hiroshima and 6 months in Tokyo, and you live with host families, so I got to experience 9 different host families, some for 1 month and then some for 2 months. And I got to experience Japanese office life. I would go 9 to 5 to the office, and then typically after the office hours, I met little kids from age 1 to college age, and just teaching them about American life, and like I had a family album that I would show them and everything. So just exposing different cultures, which I find really important. Learning Japanese has like opened so many doors for me, and maybe I'm not fluent or anything, but just knowing the background of different cultures and knowing that international business and just having like a global view on the world, I think is really important into society. So, yeah, and this fall I'm going back to Japan, to Temple University, where Laura went to, so I'll continue my education there for 2 years.
Can you envision your life being different if you hadn't studied Japanese? What would you have done if you hadn't studied Japanese?
My life would be completely different.
studying Japanese at OSU.
Yes. It was intense, but it definitely, going over into Japan for the internship, I really learned like how beneficial it was for me. No matter how hard the classes were, I was really appreciative of that I did go through that program.
Did you go through 3 years or 4 years or 5 years?
I did 3 years, but 1 year was the speak in the summer, the intensive 1 year course.
And last is Professor Padilla. I don't see a BA here.
San Francisco State.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they gave me one. Infinite ill wisdom. Yeah.
It says here, MA in History at San Francisco State University in 1998. And you worked at the English Academy in Shizuoka Prefecture from 1989 to 1994.
Right.
That's a long time.
I did my BA in International Relations at SF State, and when I graduated, I went to China, where I lived for 2 years teaching English at a university. And then after that, I then went to Japan, where I lived in Shizuoka Prefecture for about 5 years. I did all sorts of things. I taught English. I worked at a tea factory for a couple of years. I surfed. I joined sewing school. I did judo. I had done judo for 12 years in the U.S., and so I did continue to do judo there. Joined swim school. Just all around had a lot of fun. And in the process, I happened to, by happenstance, pick up the Japanese language, a smattering. Met a person who was apparently willing to live her life with me. I don't think it was the brightest choice she ever made, but she made it. And then her and I came back and we did our master's degrees at SF State. I did history, East Asian history, and she did Japanese pedagogy, and she realized after teaching 1 year, American students, that they were ill-mannered and that she did not want to teach them anymore. And so she gave up her career in Japanese pedagogy.
Well, the OSU students are much different.
Oh, absolutely, but of course. And then while I was studying my MA in history at SF State, I took, because I had a speaking level in Japanese, because I'd been speaking for about 5 years. But it wasn't down in any transcripts, and I knew that I was going to be applying to graduate school, PhD studies, and I would have to have language courses. So I took advanced language courses at SF State. I took all of the junior and senior level courses in literature, reading and writing, and that I did in 1 or 2 semesters. And then they threw me in with the grad students, and so I took basically in my years there, I took all the courses they offered. And then I came here thinking that, yes, I've got Japanese down. And when I started to do my research in, as you well know, when I started to do my research in Japanese, I wanted to do history of medicine in Japan in the 19th century. I went to the National Library of Medicine in Bethesda, which has a unique collection there. And I got all these documents that I could not read, because 19th century Japanese is fundamentally different, and I had no idea, than modern Japanese. And then I showed up at Professor Torrance's door, pleading, begging, and he was kind enough in his smoke-filled office to assist me.
Not smoke-filled anymore.
Not smoke-filled anymore, right? And so about 1 year, right? Yeah, during his lunch hours, once or twice a week, he helped me out and gave me sort of, I would say, a good base, the rudiments of 19th century Japanese. And then I was fortunate enough to receive a Fulbright Hays doctoral dissertation research grant, and I ended up being at Nintendo Medical University for 13 months, where I did research, sat in on and took grad level courses there, and collected probably enough research to write 3 or 4 books. All right, so I found Japanese to be extremely difficult, having lived in China. Chinese I found more to my liking. I found it very similar to English. Not that it is, but syntactically I thought it was much similar to English. And when I arrived in Japan, I found Japanese to be really overwhelming, and it was a struggle to learn it. And then when I met Hiromi, unwittingly become my wife, we lived apart. She was at university, and I would write her letters, and if I wrote her a letter in English, she would send it back to me. In Japanese, it'd say, that's said in very rude Japanese to write in Japanese. And so I began to write in Japanese to her, and then she would correct my letters and send them back. Yeah, and she was brutal. She wouldn't speak to me in English. She would write to me in English. And I kind of liked her, and so I had to learn Japanese so I could communicate with her. Because she knew that if I didn't know Japanese, her parents would never let me in the kingdom. Anything that you study, and I think this is what everybody sort of said, anything that you study it well. You know, anytime that you, and I'm a guy who went to China and then went to Japan with no Japanese or Chinese under my belt at all. None whatsoever. I didn't know a single word. And I just had to pick the languages up when I lived there. So you would have an immense advantage over a guy like me. You would learn much more in a shorter period of time. So just learn the language as well. Pick up as many skills outside of language that you can. If you decide that you want to do the route of an academic later in life, your language will serve you well. And in fact, if you want to do, say, history, right? And you're thinking, gosh, I'd like to do an MA in Japanese history or a PhD in Japanese history, it's indispensable. Not only do you have to spend time in Japan, but you also have to be able to read and write Japanese and speak it in some way. So, terribly important.
Question was, I'm specifically interested in the medical field and the sciences, not necessarily history or culture or language itself. I want to see what opportunities there were for using language and using the understanding of different cultures in the medical field. And whether you've had experience with meeting other professionals or just you've seen in your own experiences.
Well, I went to Tokyo Institute of Technology for my postdoc, and they didn't have really like a medical school there, but they have all sorts of engineering, hard sciences, physics, chemistry, everything. In Japan, I think it's one of those countries where there's still a lot of money and a lot of opportunity for non-Japanese to go there and enroll in different programs, whether it's for a year or even if you wanted to get a degree, a technical degree or a scientific degree or medical degree would be much more difficult. But there are people who've done it, and this is the wonderful thing about Japan is that since the Meiji period, right?
Yeah.
They've been very receptive about bringing foreigners to Japan, not only to teach but also to learn. There's a lot of trade back and forth of technology and information and knowledge, and if you were to do that, you'd be part of a long-standing historical tradition. So I really encourage you to put that up. It'd be very rewarding, guaranteed.
If you come to OSU, I'm sure there's ways that you could, we have a great many affiliations with Japanese universities through our Office of International Affairs here.
Yeah.
And you can kind of arrange your own kind of study abroad program. Yeah.
Actually, following up on that, we are still around next year. We are applying for a huge grant, and we are hoping to bring in for instance, people in the science to talk about how, for instance, science and Japanese can be combined. So if you're around and if you get money, please come to our workshops.
The requirement, I think, is 3 years of Japanese background, and then you're eligible for FLAS, federally funded, which pays for tuition and a stipend, actually, so you wouldn't have to work. And again, hopefully we'll be maintaining those fellowships throughout the year, and they're available to undergraduates as well as graduates. Yeah, I didn't want to give the impression that you should just study Japanese for 5 years and then go to Japan and try to do what we did, because in our time in Japan, at least in my time, there weren't very many foreigners. We're old. Yeah, but there really weren't very many foreigners, and these days there's a great many more. But not only that, life is so much easier if you have institutional connections in terms of maintaining your visas. You don't have to constantly be looking over your shoulder thinking somebody's going to try to deport you, and so on and so forth. So if you do go, again, we have any number of study abroad programs and affiliations with other Japanese universities where you can go legitimately.
I have a number of former students who are teaching English in Japan, and China, and Korea. It's great. It's a wonderful experience. I have some of them been there 3, 4, 5 years now. But the one bit of advice I always give them is make sure you have an exit strategy. You know, don't go there, get stuck there, and not have enough money to leave and come back to the United States and, you know, get last month's rent on an apartment, deposit, all that kind of stuff. It's easy to get stuck. And when I was there last time, I met a number of people who were older than myself at that point, and these were people who had just sort of got stuck in Japan, never found a way to get back, even though they wanted to. They, you know, had all sorts of commitments at that point, and it was difficult for them to make their transition back. So have an exit strategy is very important. Yes, it's fun to go and to be there for a year, but make sure you got enough money to actually get, you know, an airplane ticket back. And if you're not going to be living with your parents, you know, have enough money for rent. This is really important.
I'm going to be the guy that throws caution to the wind. Get a boogie board or a surfboard. Make sure you hit 7-Eleven, get your bottle of Pocari Sweat, and get a couple of rice balls and just hit the waves. Just relax and enjoy life.
Yeah, other questions from the audience? Yes.
I feel like as somebody's beginning learning Japanese, the idea of trying to apply for internships or jobs in the future is very intimidating. When you say there's a certain point in your language studies that you should stop being intimidated of trying to apply for these positions because of just feeling you haven't reached a point with the language, or should you just keep going out there and say, I know I don't know that much now, but I have potential, I promise.
Mr. Hyde, you have ideas about that?
Yeah. This is the same thing I tell to my employees, but the associates. Until, well, you don't know how good you are, how bad you are, but all I see is everybody has a potential of learning, being able to do. And those who give up and won't try, those are the ones that's really left behind. So, and first of all, you have to know how good you are, and then from there, you will make a commitment to learn more and harder, so that you learn and you provide a good service for them, to the company that you're internship with. So you have to just try and see. And some companies may say, okay, I want you to go back to school and then study. I don't think a Japanese company will say something like that. But you have, once you have this opportunity, I think you will be able to finish the internship, but you can learn so much. Whether or not you feel, gosh, I just messed up, but you learn one way or the other. You did good, or you didn't. But that's not the answer. You have directions that you can decide.
Can I? Yeah. The worst they can do is say no. Right? And then you're just no different from where you started. That decision is sort of like any other big decision, like getting married, buying a house, having kids, right? If you wait for the absolute perfect time to do that, and you wait till everything in your life is just where you think it ought to be, that time may never come. And life doesn't work that way. Was it John Lennon said, life is what happens when you're making plans, or something like that, right? So if you spend all of this time trying to work on your Japanese, thinking, okay, I'm almost there, I'm almost confident enough, maybe I can go out, opportunities are passing you by. But if you go out and say, this is where I'm at now, this is what I can do, I'm going to try to get better, see what comes up. And if 12 of them say no, then maybe 13 or 14 says yes. Right? So all they can do is say no. You got to have a little bit of a thick skin and be able to take some rejection maybe, but so what? All they can do is say no, and then no harm done, right? No real difference. So just try it now. Get out there now and see what's out there now.
And I didn't know we were going to be using John Lennon as our muse, but okay. I would say.
Try to imagine, Rob.
Right, all the people. What I would also say is that in the numerous times I've been back and forth to Japan, either on the train or at Narita Airport or at Nagoya Airport, not every time, but I would say at least half the time I meet people that I had studied Japanese with, either at San Francisco State or OSU, and they're currently living and working in Japan. And they're not teaching English. Most of them are working for Japanese companies. So if you do study Japanese, your language skills will serve you well. You just have to, I think that, obviously have the exit strategy, but think of the surfboard. But get to Japan and make sure that you supplement your in-class learning with, real life experience. You'll do well.
And certainly it's intimidating. I can't tell you how many times I pick up the phone and there'd be somebody who just I'd be speaking too quickly for me to catch, and I'd just be like, Mom, just send things for you. And I just transfer it over, but I mean.
You don't just say, hi.
Exactly. Just say hi. Say hi, and hi, kashikomarimashita, and fold.
Right.
And then just transfer it to whoever can take care of it. I mean, but the point is that there are ways you can just kind of ease into it. There were once I got started, there were different even grammatical language constructions that I learned that I didn't learn in my classes here. Like there's the whole conditional form plus saiwaitis. So like I heard my boss telling somebody, hey, if you can call me back next week, that would be great. So it's like, mata daishu gorennaku itakereba saiwaitis. I wouldn't have known that instruction had I not worked there. So there's a lot that you can just kind of learn on the fly and in that particular situation. But you don't have to be, oh my gosh, she's absolutely fluent. She can just translate anything. I was definitely not fluent. And then I ended up also helping headquarters translate technical Japanese documents into English. But they're like, oh, well, you're just really helping us out with this, so you can just take your time with it, and it'll help you learn and whatnot. So I now know fun words like sewage that I never would have known before. The point is that there's not really just one way to go about it. Your options aren't just go to Japan or die. That's not it. There's a lot that you can do to just, like I said, just ease on into it. So, I'd be happy to take your name and your email address because I got a packet for the bachelor's degree students over at Miami University. I go there and I try to give them a pep talk, things you can do after bachelor's. And I've got a list of recruiting agencies here locally, here in the States, where you can get a bilingual job.
Being fluent is not a requirement for a lot of things. I've never claimed to be fluent. And, it's been a long time since I've actually been to Japan now, so I'm very rusty. And I'm a historian, so I don't actually use it in day-to-day speaking as people might in business and so forth. But if I waited for that moment where I felt really confident enough that, okay, now I'm going to try to get a job, I simply wouldn't be here. I was lucky enough at the time that when I was ready to graduate, I was actually sitting in the history department office where I was a work-study student. And just out of the blue, somebody came in and said, oh, I got your number from so-and-so. There's a startup company out on the east side of Columbus called Tomasco Molsober. I think they're still in business. And we need somebody who's got some knowledge of Japanese, but some cultural sensitivity, and that was sort of the thing. Somebody who knows what it means to be with Japanese, work with Japanese, and can be flexible enough to work with Japanese under those circumstances. And I got a job. I didn't even go look for the job. They found me, and I was just lucky that way. So I did that for a while. But that was not, business world was not for me. I'm an academic, so I didn't stay with that very long.
Can I say something really quick? The internship that I did, Lavo International Exchange Foundation, they don't require any language. So like,
Not even English.
well, English. study Japanese. The other two interns from America didn't have any like background on Japanese. They had like international experience, but like they learned Japanese while they were there. So there's also, I'm sure there's other internships or opportunities that allow you to get into Japan and experience that without even knowing the language too. So, well, I wouldn't put a lot of pressure on.
Just get out there and do it. Seriously, all of you. Yeah, just do it.
Just do it.
Wait, Yuasa Sensei, so Yuasa was undergraduate advisor. Are you still undergraduate advisor?
Language student.
But you were undergraduate advisor for a while. One thing we determined and that I saw as well is that it really helps if you double major. She's nodding, Yuasa Sensei's nodding her head. And it can be as simple a double major as international business or something like that, which is, in my view, not a very hard degree, right? I mean, it's
Are there any international business majors in?
Sorry. But you have a real leg up because when you're going around to Japanese companies, people will say, "Oh, this person is business oriented," and you get a real advantage through that degree. So you're doing something very worthwhile.
That was well done.
Got out of that, didn't I?
I actually want to speak to that. I deal with recruiting, I staff a lot of the Japanese companies in Iowa, third party recruiting. And one of the things that really sticks out in the resume is having that second major. So whether it is business or whether it is something with communications or something of that nature, we can use that and showcase that to our clients and say, hey, this person just doesn't know Japanese, they're taking that Japanese to another step, and they're applying it to this other section. So I totally agree with that.
Some Japanese recruiters came here last year and talked. And is there anybody who does engineering here? No. Okay. Yeah, they said that because there are so many manufacturing companies in the state of Ohio, I heard that for instance, combination of engineering in Japanese is great, and also accounting Japanese. And but you're right, some kind of the combination. The recruiter said would be very will make it very attractive.
And you're not required to just do like some kind of business or accounting or some kind of technical field. The field that I found myself being really passionate for and now getting involved in is international education. So there are actually degrees like master's programs for student affairs and higher education. There are a lot of excellent programs out there. I know my school has one, but there's also a school called SIT, and that's all they do is training for international education. And so what that entails is study abroad, because there's a whole field around study abroad, a lot of jobs, a lot of third-party companies out there that's what they go overseas, they form programs, and they come back here and they recruit people for those programs. And then there are also people in international students services, so helping the students from overseas who want to come over here and study at American institutions. So it's a really big, varied field. So if you're more kind of culturally and language kind of oriented, and you have a passion for going overseas and for intercultural communication and whatnot, then that might be a field that you might really get interested in. The professional organization is called NAFSA, N-A-F-S-A, and they have both state, regional, and national conferences. And there are schools and businesses that might actually pay for you to go to these conferences and take workshops. And they offer really great networking opportunities, because networking is definitely where it's at. I actually would not have gotten my job now had I not networked. I actually brushed up my LinkedIn account, and I joined Miami University's international office group to the study abroad advisor there, just online, and said, hey, one of these days, I think I want to do what you do. And I actually set up office hours with her, and I went in and talked to her, and she took an interest in me, and just started sending me job positions and tips and tricks, and she said, hey, you might want to get involved with this thing called NAFSA, I'm just telling you now. Okay. So I called off work, and I saved up some money, and I volunteered at the conference, and just started meeting people, and then next thing I know is she's at the conference telling me, hey, 2 positions just opened up at Miami. I totally talked you up. So I brought my resumes, and I met those people, and then I landed the interview, and now I have the job. So, you know, definitely just get out there and explore the different fields that are out there, because it's not just all about science and technology and, you know, business and accounting and whatnot. There's a lot more that you can do with your degree.
Are there other questions or comments? Yeah.
Is it absolutely essential to go to Japan? Like, if you're studying Japanese just because you like it? Because it might not be like financially feasible for like a college student to go to Japan. So does it really help that much more if you go to Japan while you're learning Japanese instead?
I think any language, immersion, it just has to be immersion. I mean, you know, think about how you learn language as a child, you know, it's just almost through osmosis, right? And I think there are a couple of examples people have said already, the things that picked up, like Rob, you know, just picking up things because he's there. It helps if you have some formal training to go before you go. But once you're there, you'll learn so much more. I mean, even if there are ways that you can do that here though, like if you're working for a Japanese company, you're surrounded by Japanese colleagues at work. But immersion is really important. So I think, yeah, I mean, this is what exchange programs should facilitate here as well. So if you can afford that, I think you pay fees here, pay your tuition here, and then go there. I'm not sure how it works anymore, but all that kind of stuff is changing. But yeah, if you can go, it makes a world of difference.
If your school has a consortium agreement with the school overseas, you can use your financial aid that you have here for that program. So
Yeah.
that you can essentially basically just pay your school what you would normally do, and then they would transfer that to that other school.
I don't know if that's true here. I think, you know, I think it's more expensive here to do it. But nonetheless, I would go over to Oxley Hall and the study abroad people over there and talk to them about possibility. And we, as I said before, we have a great many connections with Japanese universities that accept our students.
And the nice thing is that I've noticed, just from when I lived in Japan and then I've been going back and forth doing research, is that the base prices haven't really changed much over the last 20 years, 20, 25 years because of the recession. And in fact, housing is much cheaper now than it was when I arrived in '81. So it's you know, it's not a good thing for Japan, but it benefits you. and at the end of the day, your is what it is.
It's what kind of experience you want to. If you want the study abroad experience, or you want work experience, or you just want like leisure.
I'm a freshman and I haven't even I'm an
Okay.
animal science major.
But there's lots of options. I'm saying there's a lot of options. So.
And you have a lot of time.
Yeah.
We do have, for the exchange programs, keep up the language study, because if you have, you know, 2 or 3 years of Japanese, that's much easier.
For someone to come to Japan, I go to Japan probably 8 times a year now because of business. It's changing so much that the non-Japanese people are not as rare as before. So the quality of people coming to Japan for different reasons, those anime or different things, karaoke contest, they're amazing. I mean, they just study so much and they come. So it's not something that you just go and then make a living out of it. It's more difficult. And I see, I don't think real gaijin, but there's some people here and there in the area. Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, nothing. But those are sometimes I see just walk by.
Yeah. Don't be like me. No, I think a basic rule is the more you have need to use a language, the better your language ability becomes. And if you don't have a need to use the language, it's like my Chinese speaking ability, close to zero. Yes.
I have a question for Dr. Miller.
Yeah, sorry, I was commenting on his,
I was wondering, you said you studied and taught in China?
I did, yeah.
And then you went over to Japan.
I did, yeah.
I'm double majoring in 2 languages right now, and I was wondering when you went to Japan, were there any opportunities for you to use your Chinese, or like what opportunities there were?
Really, not from 89 to 94, but when I went back to do research at Chintendo Medical University, they had a large contingent of Chinese students that were working on their PhDs in medicine. And I'd sit in the library and they'd just flock around because they wanted to practice their English, and when they found out I could speak a little Chinese, this is when the alcohol became relevant, but not when I was, So I did engage in alcohol, but that was only during the research for the
There is a camera.
Yeah. I should shut. But yeah, so, and right now there are quite a few, I think in Tokyo, the largest group of foreigners, if you will, non-Japanese, are Chinese. So there's quite a few. And when I was living there in 89 to 94, there were hardly any at all. So it has been a huge sea change. I know that in the early 90s in Shizuoka Prefecture, we had a huge influx of Brazilians, actually. I think 60 or 70,000 Brazilians came in at that time. So different parts of Japan have different, types of people. But yeah, so if you're in Tokyo, you will definitely see a lot of Chinese. Some of the best Chinese restaurants I've ever visited, I've ever had the pleasure of going to, are Ikebukuro in Tokyo. They're awesome. So go to Tokyo, eat good Chinese.
But basically, I think a lot of the students here are probably kind of going where you guys just kind of, some of you guys just came from. But when you were studying Japanese, is there anything that you would have done differently, knowing what you know now?
I probably would have tried harder to make passing JLPT a goal of mine. I kind of put it off because I just assumed, I'm going to graduate and I'm just going to go to Japan and just be there and immerse, and that's when I'll take it. But things didn't turn out that way.
JLPT is the Japanese Language Proficiency Test.
Yep.
And because of the efforts of Mrs. Stecky, we're going to be hosting that at Ohio State next year. So those of you who want to take that examination can take it right here. You don't have to go to Michigan or Chicago.
It's the first Sunday of December every year. And applications are usually starting around the summer. They'll be open, I think, through about September. You can apply. Information will be on our website. It's every December. And now on, we'll be able to have it at our homes.
So you can come and take it.
There we go.
I guess I'm similar to Laura, to John, but I don't know how important is it to have the JLPT on your resume? Do you know if it is important, or you can just perform in the interview that you're capable of speaking it?
Well, I don't know if you're asking me that or.
I don't know if you know, or if
Sure.
anyone knows
It depends on the
importance of it.
I think it depends on, when I'm looking for translators or interpreters for Japanese, I will look for JLPT.
Yeah.
But if it's more like an administrator or HR person, I might not look for it as much. So.
Okay.
Just in my experience, actual jobs in Japan, they usually do require some JLPT level, or they'll say like JLPT level something or equivalent. So.
Yeah. Yes.
If you are, for instance, applying to MA or PhD in the our department to go to our graduate school, graduate program, I will always look at Japanese language proficiency test, level 1. And if you have passed level 1, yeah, like you can be a TA too. And if it's not level 1, maybe they are not TA. And but the fact is, the students who finish the 4th year take 5th year. Maybe if you only take 5th year once, you probably will not be able to pass level 1. But if you do 5th year twice, I think the likelihood of passing the level 1 will increase tremendously. So if you are in the like 2nd year, 3rd year, I would definitely suggest you to take the accelerated level, like speak or 2nd and 3rd year intensive, and then try to take the 5th year as much as possible, so that you may be able to actually pass the level 1 while you are undergraduate.
Go, yeah, especially in terms of reading ability, kanji recognition, those kinds of things are very important, right, on that test. And so, 5th year is when you can really get into that. Look forward to that. Well, thank you all for coming and really good questions, and I hope this has been informative. And again, thank you panelists for coming all the way.